Hey there, I'm Otto.
And I'm Sheldon, and this is a Coffee Weekly, where we talk about everyday concepts, related theories, personal experiences, and some other stuff, along with ideas for self-improvement and general well-being.
So get your favorite beverage and join the conversation with us today. Today I have some remains of vitamin C because I had a cold last
Today,
week.
today my beverage is as water because we already had some conversation before this recording, and I drank all my coffee. So the Coffee Weekly is already inside of me.
That's great. And in this episode today, we talk about why therapy, which is a very generic title. But as you might have guessed, we want to talk about therapy and about our personal experiences, any thoughts around it, and yeah, just open the topic for conversation because just right away, what I can say is just talking about the concept of therapy has so different connotations and meanings in different social circles and countries. So in some places, if you talk about it, it's a good thing. In some places, if you talk about it, it's a very bad thing and you're stupid and why don't you man up and just like fix your problem yourself? So, but then does it make therapy itself, is it a bad thing or a good thing? And so why do people talk so crazily different about it? Maybe, Shell, do you have any first thoughts about this? About
Yeah,
what do you feel or think when you hear the word therapy?
yeah. I think I had some different some changes on the interpretation of the topic when I was growing up. So the first times I heard about it, I don't know if it's because of the way that the thing was presented into Brazilians culture, but basically the first few times that I heard about therapy, I heard that this was something for crazy people. So if you have a mental problem, and I'm not even talking about a condition or well-being stuff, like just if you have a mental issue and you're have something that should be treated with a professional, then you should seek therapy. Of course, nowadays it has changed a little bit, but every now and then you see some people, and when you mention the word therapy or you mention that you were going to therapy, they're like, "Oh, I'm sorry, what's wrong with you?" or something like this. So I think there is like, even though nowadays people talk much more about mental health, mental well-being, and stuff like that, and we have podcasts like this one, but still there is a lot of prejudgment and or prejudice from people. And yeah, I think that's generally how the topic was presented for me. And I'm gonna stop here right now because I'm gonna use it as a trampoline to my experience with therapy. So, do you have any topics before we move on?
I mean, I think we can capture that pretty well. I think going to therapy or needing or wanting therapies is somewhat stigmatized. It's like people think, oh my God, like therapy, this is so bad. And well, maybe in most cases, yeah, you actually have a problem. Maybe it's actually kind of a bad thing that you should talk about. But the process of going there is probably one of the hardest steps to do. It takes a lot of energy, courage, and just accepting your shitty situation and doing it. So I actually have a lot of respect for people who have the power, first of all, to do it and to talk about it and share as much as they feel willing to share. You don't have to share about everything that you talk about. I mean, that's what you have a therapist for if you have one. But I would say, yeah. Also, I would say in Germany where I grew up, it was pretty similar. It's like, I mean, I didn't know of anyone, any friend, any person that ever talked about going there. It was just until I met one of my closest friends who told me about it, and I was like, huh, I mean, makes a lot of sense what he says. Like, it's not that bad. But yeah, and before you don't hear this, you don't know. And you just assume that, well, everybody says it's bad, so probably it's a bad thing. And I mean, I'm kind of fine. And yeah, every person will get along in their lives without therapy in some way. We find ways to cope and we find ways to survive. But it's exactly those things that, our instincts, our everything like tries to help us to cope with things kind of spirals in us into some loops that, you know, can make your life significantly worse. They might not be as drastic. Okay, maybe you won't I don't know, think about ending your life, or I don't know, any drastic things. Maybe they just make your life more uncomfortable or not as good as it could be, but they are affecting your life in many ways. And this has opened my eyes, and also going myself. We can talk about this after maybe you go about your experience, Sheldon, and then I can continue.
Yeah, definitely. So for me, it was interesting. So I was talking about like the prejudice and how people see therapy, and also talked about how nowadays people are talking more and more and more about therapy. So what I saw is on my circle of friends and connections, I was seeing an increasing number of people going to therapy, and they were talking about the problems. I was always open with my friendship and relationships. I was always open to listen to people say that they were talking, how was their experience with therapy and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, should I go to therapy? Because I don't feel anything like any acute pain or anything that is would be faced as an issue, as a mental issue or a mental condition or anything like that. It looks like I live a normal life. It looks like I'm good. So why should I go to therapy? And so my premise to go to therapy is to see why I don't feel like I need to go to therapy. Because I have this idea or this philosophy in life that you should understand the things that are for you and also the things that are not for you. But you should try it out just to see if this thing is not for you. So I was trying out therapy to see if therapy was for me or not. And at the end of the day, even myself that was quote unquote normal or not having any problems to talk in therapy, I actually figured out that I had a lot of things to talk in therapy. And one of the things is that I felt so like my friends would talk to me, oh, Sheldon, you're always in a good mood. You don't feel like you have like a bad day. And one thing that I noticed is that I have a very steady, or very not steady, but stable baseline. And I go back to my baseline quite easily. So sometimes I feel bad, but I don't have a bad day. I actually have a bad moment or a bad few hours. And then by the end of the day, I might actually come back to my baseline. So this doesn't mean that I don't have emotions. It means that the emotions, they fluid and come back to the baseline. So for me, what therapy gave was a set of tools. So first of all, understanding and awareness of myself, and a set of tools to give me more emotional intelligence and give me more just basically tools to deal with day-to-day things. Sometimes I'm being frustrated that something is happening, so now I have some things that I can do that is kind of like some exercise for the mind, and then I come better out of it. So that's how more or less my experience with therapy and how I started. And yeah, it's quite different from most of people. They usually have something first, and then they let this something get really, really bad, and then they go to seek for help. I was kind of like going preemptively, and ended up being quite good for me as well.
Nice. That's a good story. Maybe I can continue with my experience because it was a bit different. It's, I mean, I don't know, when I first like thought, yeah, of myself. So maybe there's some things that I don't understand about myself. I mean, I always knew about myself that I have a harder time with social context and especially emotional intelligence, but there was something that I could, in to some degree, work on myself. I could, I don't know, introspect, reflect, talk to other people, exchange thoughts, and try to get better with empathy and so on. But I was also very similar in a way, or I'm similar in a way, that I actually have a very stable base in that sense, and there's rarely anything that can like take away that base. So I'm kind of in some ways always happy. But the first time I realized that maybe there's some things I cannot maybe solve myself was that when it came to myself, I think there was a somewhat still base, but when it came to others, I noticed that I had very strong, like either expectations or thoughts that people shouldn't do something or should do something that would affect other people. But I didn't, if you say something to someone else, you don't really feel the effects as much as if someone says something to you. So, but then I realized it was my relationships that I could sense and understand that I was having a lot of expectations towards my partner. They were in a sense that they would not feel safe and I wouldn't feel good because the relationship was going well, and it was kind of repeating. But yeah, at the first time I thought about this, it was actually when I was living in Ireland. It was like 4 years ago, or 4 years ago. Yes, I think I went as far as looking for a therapist, but then it didn't really work out because there was like the ones that I felt I would want to talk to them, they were like booked out for a year or something. I was like, okay, all right. And then the only options I had that didn't really feel so like, they didn't really catch me. And I think that's maybe a situation that many people have. And so at that time, yeah, I didn't make the step to go to therapy, which I think, yeah, probably, I mean, I don't know if would have changed the relationship at that time, but it would definitely have helped me to understand myself better and to, well, inflict less emotional damage on other people in that sense. But then, yeah, after that relationship ended eventually, then I was like, okay, uh, I'm surprisingly, I mean, I was like crying a lot of relationship. I was like going through a lot of shit, but I kind of felt stronger than before. Then I was like, okay, even if I don't find someone right now that where I feel I know is a perfect therapist, I will just go. And I did. And it is hard to describe, but it was a very surreal experience because, as human beings, I think we are pretty well aware what we do. We have our thoughts about how things work, what we want to do, why we do something, why we don't do something. And yeah, as I say, like we can cope with anything. We can like find our ways, even if coping with very hard things, you can have very lot of pain, but you will, in some way or the other, you will survive. But then going to therapy after like 1 or 2 sessions, the experience of having a person explaining like, let's say 80% of why you behave the way you do in one sentence was like completely mind blowing. I was like, oh my God, like, oh my God, like how could I not see this or understand this? It was nothing new in that sense because I'm still me. It's just that someone from the outside who doesn't really know you, they just know you since a week or two. They just observe your behavior. They connect the dots. They tell you, okay, this is what you do. This is probably related to something in your childhood, and this is the way you cope with it. But this coping mechanism makes this worse, and this spins up the whole loop. And you're like, oh my God, like, thanks. And then basically for me, it felt like the rest of the therapy, which I'm still going every now and then. I actually have an appointment today. That's why I came up with the topic. Is basically paid hand holding, I would call it. So you understand the problem, you know what it is, and you maybe in another session you work to what the solution is. So what can you do to unwind, to unroll or like undo this spiral you're getting into? Well, but it's like telling someone, okay, if you want to have a six pack, you need to go out, work 5 times a week to the gym. Well, you know the solution, but I still have to do it. And this process can be very, or I mean, most likely is very emotionally exhausting because it is maybe a fear that you've been running away from. So what you have to do is stop running away from the fear, but approach it and, well, talk with yourself or have someone help you understand it. And so, yeah, for me, it's basically, you talk about it the next week and you notice you fall back to some patterns and you're like, oh God. And it was actually very hard in that sense. But to sum it up, I mean, the whole experience, it is, I mean, I choose to go to a private therapist, but it was by far of everything I've ever paid money for the best investment of my whole life. I mean, it's hard to explain because it's like if someone would teach you how to ride a bike, for example, and before you've always been walking. It works, yeah, but there's better ways, and they're not super, it's not rocket science. It's possible to talk about it. So that's my experience, my thoughts, and my general view on it. Can you?
Yeah.
What about you, Sheldon? What do you think?
Yeah. I have a. It was really nice to see like how you constructed your answer, and I want to pick up from the thing that you said, and also because like the way that I see therapy is like it gives you tools, like you mentioned, and it also it kind of helps you to get some external feedback. It's like you're when you have when you ask friends and you ask people around you, sometimes they don't have the whole view of yourself, and when you go to a therapist, they have the actual tools to help you. And also like because I'm saying that because some people they usually, some people actually came with the answer, like when I talk about therapy with them, they came to me and like, oh, I'm when I'm sad, I talk to some friends and I'm fine with that, and this is fine to a certain point. But it's nice to go to a therapist because they are a professional. Their advice is not going to be based on their past experiences, but actually based on actual research, psychological research. So this is one thing. And also when I think about therapy as well, I think a lot about self understanding yourself a lot, and understand your position in the world. So therapy helps you navigate your own behavior and how you portray yourself to the world. Like you mentioned earlier, like relationships, sometimes some people do some things that trigger you and you become angry and you don't know why. And then when you go to therapy, you can analyze these behaviors and these situations, and you can understand patterns and other things, and you can have tools to help you to not do this, or for example, not stay angry or not give an angry response, stop and think about your response and stuff like that. So what I'm trying to say is that basically the way that so basically what I'm trying to explain is, and I'm kind of losing my words a little bit because it's a bit hard to come up with an analogy. But basically the idea is that when you're going to a kitchen and you're cooking and you don't actually know how to cook, you're kind of like mixing the ingredients, and it kind of work sometimes, but sometimes it doesn't work. And someone comes to you and says, oh, this is the recipe, follow these instructions, and you might come up with a better dish. And so that's more or less how I see going to therapy. It's not like because you have a condition, it's because you can learn about yourself, and then with these learnings you can apply right away and have a better like be more comfortable on your own shoes, and also be more comfortable in the society that you live in. Does that make sense?
I actually really like the analogy with the kitchen because this sparks so many thoughts. Okay, maybe I just dumped the thoughts here. So if you think of the normal, I mean, how you live your life, as you said, like trying to eat something, which is also part of your life, is, yeah, of course, you can go to the fridge, you can grab the cucumber, you can grab the veggies, you grab some bread, and you can eat it. And you will not starve. You will survive. And you can, I don't know, grab some milk, and oh, maybe it went a bit bad, you throw it away, and it's fine. And yeah, let's say you're out of cheese, but you really want to eat something cheesy. So you will hack something together that kind of maybe tastes like cheese. And this is our way of coping. Maybe there's a lack of something, or maybe you have too many apples, you have to eat them. So you just eat a lot of apples, but maybe you're getting tired of apples very fast. And this is like how life happens. You have, I mean, a supply of things, you have a shortage of things, you have external situations that force you, maybe the power goes off in the freezer. You have to eat all the frozen things before they go bad. So that's a very fun energy. And as you explained, going to therapy is more taking a step back and not telling you, I mean, how to chew. I mean, you can do that yourself, but explaining you, okay, being aware of the situation, of the things that are around you, And most of all, the only thing that you can change is your reaction to things or your deliberate decisions. So when you open a fridge and you see it's overflowing, your reaction is like, oh God, oh, it's too much, I gotta eat it. Or when it's too little, oh God, I have to buy food. This is your reaction. And this is the only thing you can control. You cannot control that you are hungry. You cannot control that the power goes off in your freezer. These are the things that you have to deal with because you're a human being and you're alive and these things happen. But then, as you explained, when you are aware that there is the concept of recipes, or you learn that, oh, you know, that certain food has certain vitamins, and if you only eat pizza because it's tasty, you might lack some vitamins that they won't hurt you today, but maybe in half a year or in a year, you will have deficits and you don't know where they're coming from. Maybe you're like, oh, I don't eat enough, and then you eat more pizza, but then you don't have the vitamins still, and you will survive. You will maybe have a binge eating and eat everything, and then something happens to have the vitamins, but you will not understand really what the problem is, what you can do about it, and how to resolve it. And this is exactly where therapy is like the analogy of like learning how to use food in a proper way. First of all, to survive better, to like cope with situations better, but that's the bonus out of it. You also in the same way learn how to make a very nice recipe. So you learn, okay, if you take this meat, for example, if you were to eat meat, and cook it very slow at a low temperature for a long time, and add a little bit of salt and some like ground pepper and whatever, and then you can create recipes deliberately that you might maybe by chance have done before, but not as precise and specifically, and also aligning to your taste. Maybe, yes, you're a vegan, you don't want to eat meat, but you want to have a, I don't know, a very savory meat, or you want some special flavors, and then you can learn it. And I think I love the analogy because it pretty much reflects the why in that sense. So you, or I mean, at least for me, the way I go and I still go is to be able to develop myself better. So in that sense, if you, for example, eat better food, you are better nourished. You can, I don't know, if you work out, you can grow more muscles and you're more healthy, less fat, and everything. In the same way, this is therapy on your behavior. You're more aware, you're more stable, you're more, I mean, able to influence your behavior and happenings in the way that you want it to be. Which in the end, spoiler, doesn't mean that you will be less sad. Maybe you will even cry more, or you will even allow your feelings to happen more. But that in the end of the day, you know, if you have a really shitty day, you wake up and you just don't want to work. Okay, maybe you just call in sick. Maybe you cancel you don't see your friends. You watch sad movies, cry the whole day, and that's fine. But then the next day, you're happy again because you don't have to pretend that you're happy. You don't have to pretend that everything is fine. Maybe you just want to be sad for a while, and there's nothing wrong with that. But there's another concept I could talk about later. But yeah, I love that analogy. Maybe there's something more you want to add to that.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think this analogy is quite interesting, and we can kind of sum up. You can eat whatever you want, but if you want to eat properly, you should go to like a nutritionist or something like this, like a professional that gives you the real food for you to get a better eating. But I want to talk because basically what we talked is we hear a lot about therapy, then we decide to give it a try, and then some benefits that we come up with it. So basically now I want to switch to kind of like to the closing arc of the conversation. Because there are different types of therapy. So the most common one is the cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. And this is basically, from what I've seen and heard, I'm not a professional, so this definition could be a little bit wrong, but basically it takes care of your behaviors right now and apply tools for your behavior so you can cope or change, or anyway, take care of some current behavior that you're having at the moment. And then there are some other types of therapy that treat or take care of the same behaviors or patterns or things but then it traces back to something deeper. For example, I did art therapy, and with art therapy, the therapist was based some concepts from Carl Jung on the art that I was doing, and some exercises that involve art. And then from there, we could discuss things like maybe a childhood trauma or something that is deeper, not to the behavior, but actually something to the inside. And then, so basically the idea is like the problem is tackled from a different perspective. And there's also music therapy and some other types of therapy that I'm not aware of. So basically you can also choose a different one. I'm right now, I stopped my art therapy, and I'm looking forward a CBT therapy because I want to give it a try. And but basically with therapy in general, you have those tools. And when, as Otto mentioned, I guess earlier, it doesn't need to be for life. Maybe you have something to treat or to talk about, and you go there and you say this something, and when you feel that you are coping enough with this issue that you are taking care, then you decide if you have. I'm going to give you an example. Sometimes something gives me an anxiety, so I go to the therapist, and they can give me meditation or an exercise that I do to calm my brain down, or a way to switch the activity from the time of the day to another time of the day, and so on and so forth. So now I have these tools, these things that I can do to help me cope with my anxiety. So I could use these tools from now on and not go to therapy again. Or if something starts to not give me the result that I want, or oh, I'm not controlling my anxiety again, I think I need more professional help. So then I schedule another therapy session and I go again. So it doesn't need to be like continuously, it can be situational, and it can be once, and you don't need to so you don't need to wait for them to say to you, oh, you don't need to come back. Like you have to control to start and to finish your sessions. So I think that just to explain that it's something that is for you, you're on the driver's seat, like you take control of your journey to mental health. It's not something that is imposed to you, but I think people talk a lot about it, not because they are trying to impose therapy on you. They're trying to just like say, hey, it's really good, it doesn't hurt, or maybe it hurts, but you're going to feel better after. Please join and give it a try. I think it's going to be really awesome.
Nice. Maybe I can add a little bit to that. So yeah, and then I was like trying to think back about, okay, the topic of the episode is why therapy. So what about the whys, the reasons, the benefits, the downsides, the upsides? And I would say it's very hard to give some general thoughts on this because it's so individual, but there's definitely some patterns that I can see. I mean, across many people now that I know go to therapy, which is like almost everyone I know. But yeah, I mean, when you start, as Sheldon and me have different experiences, for example, you might go because you have a concrete problem or thought or a question that you cannot answer. I think that's the most intuitive. I mean, yes, you will very, very likely get a clear answer on this. But also, I mean, if maybe you're not sure, it's not one specific thing, but you have a general feeling of like, oh, maybe there's something I want to talk about, or should I go? I don't know. I think this is equally or maybe even more a good incentive to go, because it might be that you go there for 1 or 2 sessions and you talk about some minor things, but you go out and you're fine and you realize, okay, maybe I happened to be very lucky in that sense and to like not develop any patterns that are somewhat negative in some ways. But in my experience, it's very, very likely that you will discover something that you might know in the back of your head, but it wasn't aware or like surfaced enough that you would have the time and thought to talk about this. And the benefits will be, I mean, extremely great, because yes, you will get tools. It's not like, you're sad once, you go there once and you're happy once again. It's more like you get knowledge and the awareness to be able to detect it and what to do it for life, which is amazing, because it is, yeah, as I said, like the best investment you can ever do. And then about the experience itself, I mean, I think it also very varies. I mean, it might happen that you find a therapist where maybe you don't really click like on the first time, and maybe you develop over time, it gets better, or maybe I don't know, it's just the wrong person. But from what I've heard, is most people, or I think almost everyone I know, they have been very happy with therapists and get a lot of value from that. And yeah, and about the duration, it's not required that you go there your whole life. I mean, I mean, what many people do is, I mean, when you start going, you go like maybe weekly or quite a lot in the beginning to like get the work done. But once you're done, that's up to you. You can, I do like regular check-ins, so every 1 or 3 months, and just to like make sure you don't fall back or you have new questions, or maybe you talk about something else. Maybe there's a new topic you want to talk about. But also, this is entirely optional. If you feel like this is work that doesn't give you any value anymore because you've already went for like, I don't know how many weeks, that's fine. I mean, talk to them, ask them, and they will give you their honest opinion. I mean, they're there to help you. And also, they're the ones just asking you the question. It's always you answering it in some way or the other. And about the methods, yes, I'm also doing cognitive behavioral therapy. In short, what it does, you try to break down a situation, so all the beginning, happening, and end, into different categories, and you focus on the reaction, because that's the thing that you can change. You know, oh, I'm sad, and I don't know. Let's pick an example. Someone when they said they play poker and gambling because it makes them happy, but then they get more sad because they lose money. But so they can't change that they get sad, and they can't change the nature of gambling that you will probably lose money, but they can change the direction. So next time they're sad, maybe they write a book or they read a book or something, and then they will be less sad because they don't have financial problems. It's like the summary of what CBT is. And yeah, in the end, any takeaways that I can give, I would say, yeah, maybe there's one thing I mentioned earlier. My first thought was like, oh, the goal is that you should always be happy. But I think when I count the days, I have more sad days today than I had maybe before. But on the days that I'm happy, I'm very happy. And the days I'm sad, I'm just sad. And it's more clear. There's no like, weird, strong pushing hidden feelings inside of me. It's more like, this is how I feel, and this is who I am. And this is what therapy can get you to. That's my closing thoughts.
I think this is a really nice way to end, because people think that there is this. I think it can be even a topic for a subject for another episode, because our society is so attached to dualities. Like, this is either good or bad, or positive or negative, and so yin and yang, and so on and so forth. So people think that emotions are either you're happy or sad. And it's not like monofacetal, it's like multifacetal, multi things. For example, there are some days that I feel at the end of the day, I'm very, very tired, and sometimes even frustrated because some things went wrong, but I'm very happy because I was able to do stuff. So yeah, think about your emotions and your overall health, mental health, and go to therapy. I think you're gonna like. And that's it for me. See you next episode.
Thank you, everyone. And thanks for listening. It was a longer episode than usual, but we hope you enjoyed it. Let us know any thoughts. Ask us if you have any questions. And yes, the world's a great place. Make the best use out of it. See ya. Bye-bye.
Bye.